So in this instance, I had to say to the creatives, can you make the people in the teacups puke? That's a social commentary on the type of ride. And they were so confused. They said, you mean poking the bear actually makes it more legal? Like less likely for us to get sued? And I said, in this respect, yes.
Welcome to Amusing Jews, where we celebrate Jewish contributors and contributions to American popular culture. I'm Jonathan Friedmann. My co-host, Joey Angelfield, has the night off. Producer-engineer Mike Tomren is working somewhere behind the scenes. Amusing Jews is a project of Adat Chaverim, Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, the Cool Shul Jewish Cultural Community, and Atheists United Studios. Going to a theme park is an immersive 5-sense activity. On the best days, usually Tuesdays or Wednesdays when the crowds are small, you can truly lose yourself in the experience. You're not just on a pirate ride, you are the pirate. You're not just on a high-speed elevated railroad track, you're flying through the air. You're not just getting your picture taken with a costume performer, you're standing next to Mickey Mouse. Immersive experiences are, by definition, all-encompassing. In the moment, we rarely think about all the people, time, effort, and money that went into making it possible. Our guest today reminds us that one of the essential ingredients behind these experiences is a lawyer. We're thrilled to talk with Wendy Heimann, co-founder and managing partner of Nolan Heimann, an intellectual property and strategic planning law firm for creative thinkers and business makers. She specializes in the location-based experiential and immersive entertainment industry. Wendy, welcome to Amusing Jews.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually very honored. I like the fact that you think I may be amusing. Lawyers are oftentimes not put in the category of amusing, so I appreciate that. And then also I want to kind of qualify the lawyer introduction because I'm a self-hating lawyer. Let's put it that way. I've been practicing for 31 years, but I still can't believe it. A lot of what I do is quasi-business as well. So,
could you tell us about immersive entertainment and the sort of work you do in that industry?
Back in the old day, I was a communications major, and I took a really cool class, and it was called The Rhetoric of Contemporary Culture. And it was basically talking about persuading people 360 degrees, not just didactic communication, verbally, but what are all those levers you could push in order to persuade something, some behavior? And you looked at the environment, you looked at sound, touch, you looked at everything. And that really woke me up to a world of, let's call it narrative or storytelling that is 360 degrees. It's not just a script. It's not just, it really is every touch point with human senses. And it got me really excited. I was always interested in entertainment. I loved theater, and it really exposed me to this new way of thinking about creating a story. And so fast forward, when I moved to LA, a lot of folks thought I'd go into television and film, which was at the time, this was in the late 90s, right at the advent of digital. Those were the cool places to be. And because of some work I had done running a theater in Chicago, I was really interested in live entertainment. And I found myself in the theme park industry. And again, this is the late 90s. The theme park industry was considered kind of Carnival. It was still theme parks, family entertainment centers, roller coasters, spin-and pukes. That's what the teacups are referred to in our industry, spin-and pukes. We in the industry knew, based on different variables such as the technology that was emanating, consumer behavior that we were witnessing, various factors, the digital age and how it was turning traditional entertainment on its head. Music, you used to be able to make music selling albums. Now all of a sudden you had the ability to really steal music readily, same with other forms of digital entertainment. And that business models were going to change and get very disrupted. And then also younger people were less interested in things, purchasing things, and more interested in having experiences. And then on top of that, as wealth increased, there's more disposable income and people want to do more things. And so there were all these indicators that the experiential world, doing things, being part of things, experiencing things was going to become much more interesting, both from the product development standpoint and the consumer standpoint. One thing that was interesting to me is as I was navigating the legal community in Los Angeles, all the entertainment attorneys were focused on traditional verticals like television, film, music, the talent aspects. And I'm a little bit of an opportunist and I'm an entrepreneur, and I saw an opportunity as an attorney to really focus on an area that I thought was underserved, which was this experiential and immersive entertainment, which originally was primarily theme parks and water parks, but has really exploded, and your listeners are probably experiencing it firsthand. It's now exploded into everything from immersive touring experiences, projection mapping, the Dome, the MSG Sphere in Vegas, all this really exciting 360-degree immersive entertainment that's popping up, and the trajectory is only skyrocketing.
Enjoying the show? Click like and subscribe. I've also noticed in recent years the maybe intrusion of that immersive experience into things that maybe it's not wanted, like when you're pumping your gas at the gas station and then automatically some TV screen pops up and you're inundated with advertisements. And I mean, I'm sure these are like low rent versions of the kind of high concept stuff that you've been working with, but it seems like it's permeating aspects of the culture that maybe aren't so invited, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think like anything, and this is really the holy Bible, for lack of a better way of saying it, or the really backbone of good immersive experiences is the story. And so I think that holds true since the beginning of time, since the oral history, oral storytelling is you have to tell a compelling story. And you can throw all the technology at it, the LED screens, whatever it is. But if you are not creating a compelling story for the end user, it is a distraction. It's annoying. It's not good. And so that really is the art of really good immersive storytelling. And I think whenever there's a new technology, there's a rush to use it without much thought as to how to use it well. And so that's what you're experiencing when you're inundated with these interactive billboards that you hate, that seem distracting, that are not fun, that are obnoxious and annoying. It's simply because someone's not really focusing on what is the story we're trying to tell. They just think the technology's cool and think it works for itself.
Yeah, I think that happens in all kinds of ways. Sometimes movies overdo it with the CG effects and that sort of thing because they can and because it seems cool, and then it totally detracts from a story, right? Sometimes we want something that seems more real and more tangible and less kind of full of itself.
It's totally true. I think a great example of that is the Spider-Man musical that failed miserably on Broadway. You had the most incredible talent involved, and they used cutting-edge technology, and it failed miserably because at the heart of it, the story was horrible. And then you can go to a local theater company with very little resources, but they're telling a compelling story, and you're totally captivated, and you have a wonderful time. So that's the thing in my industry is always the focal point is what is the story? And that's the same when we do branded experiences. I hate to sound gross, but if Nike has a branded experience or Louis Vuitton has a branded experience, they absolutely have to work with people that understand the power of story.
You were once an executive at Universal Studios, heading up business and legal affairs for Universal Creative, the division responsible for the concept, design, and development of theme parks, resorts, and attractions. What were some of your contributions for Universal?
I have to say that working in the creative division at Universal Creative was really incredible as a lawyer because I got to work alongside truly some of the most creative talent in the industry. And it was really difficult because I consider myself creative I never really wanted to be a lawyer. So it was really hard for me to stay within the lines, color within the lines in my position at Universal. And thankfully, the person I worked for, he recognized that in me. So he allowed me to kind of contribute in non-legal ways and had some creative voice in some of the projects. But specifically, with respect to my role as a lawyer, was really a dance of trying to help the creatives create product that was legally responsible, whether it was life safety issues. Sometimes we were challenging in roller coaster situations when the optic nerve would go and designing accordingly, which was always fascinating to try to make sure our customers were safe, but still give them thrills, or have overhead fire in the certain attractions and make sure that people felt safe even though they were surrounded by fire. But there were also some discrete legal things that were really fun for me to help the creatives navigate. One attraction in particular was super fun. I think it's since closed, but I helped open the Shrek attraction, which was a 3D attraction when 3D with tickler seats and whatnot, moving seats was still considered cutting edge. And what was cool is Shrek, if those of you who've seen Shrek the movie, it's a DreamWorks property, which is now a Universal property. It's a parody of theme parks. And it pokes fun at theme parks. A lot of it is poking fun at theme parks. So it was really fun. And dare I say, there are some theme parks that it was more targeted at poking fun at than others. And it was super fun helping the creatives understand what was allowable as parody and what wasn't. And one of the moments that sticks out in my mind was I was looking at, those of you who go to theme parks know that there's a queue line that you wait in before you actually get into the show. And then there's the pre-show, and then there's the show itself. When we were designing the queue line, there were visual elements that I was presented with to make sure that they were kosher. And one looked uncannily like a poster for another theme park's teacup attraction. And that falls under a copyright analysis because you can't copy someone else's creative work. It's prohibited under the copyright law. But because Shrek is a parody, the use was meant to be parody. But from my vantage point, it didn't rise to the level of parody. Just so the listeners understand, parody doesn't mean making something silly. Parody means social commentary. That's why we are allowed to do it under the First Amendment. We're allowed to use someone else's work if we're commenting on it. Otherwise, it's seen as limiting our First Amendment rights. So in this instance, I had to say to the creatives, can you make the people in the teacups puke? Because if we show them, puking, that's a social commentary on the type of ride. And they were so confused. They said, you mean poking the bear actually makes it more legal? Like less likely for us to get sued? And I said, in this respect, yes. Poking the bear meant you're commenting on the societal place of a teacup ride by making it obvious that there are people that ride it that don't feel so great riding it. So it was a really interesting conversation to have with these creatives because their inclination was not to poke the bear and to be safe. And in this instance, I had to explain to them, the less safe your message, the actually more protected under the First Amendment it is. So it was a really fascinating thing to do as a lawyer and then to try to navigate it and explain it to a bunch of creatives. And if I can say one thing about my experience at Universal in-house, first of all, shout out to all my friends and colleagues from Universal. It was really some of the best days of my life. And while I was at Universal, Minority Report, the movie came out. It was, I think, 2002. And that was a Universal film. It was produced by or directed by Steven Spielberg. And that really foretold to me, the future of immersive entertainment. Because if you recall, Steven Spielberg utilized augmented reality. I don't know if you remember much about the film, but Tom Cruise was looking at ads that were purposefully directed towards him and no one else. And his own retina was used as the screen where the ads were being projected. And it was a very immersive film. And I knew that Spielberg was working with real scientists. I was being exposed internally to cutting edge technology, and I saw where technology was going. And I knew that the ability to tell an immersive story, the tools available were going to be, the trajectory was ginormous. And that the more tools we had available, the more compelling the opportunities were. So it was really at that point that I saw the future of immersive entertainment.
Yeah, and you could definitely look at that sort of speculation and maybe see the dark side of it as well. And I think part of, the role of someone like you maybe I'm projecting, but would be kind of in the ethical sphere. Like you shouldn't do this. Maybe you shouldn't go that far. Because I know that some of that targeted advertising and the retina scanning and stuff like that can seem pretty scary and could probably be used and is being used in nefarious ways as well.
It's like any technology. You think about AI right now. AI, it's the genie's out of the bottle. It's not going anywhere. It's being used in all walks of our life. And we are always behind on the ethical considerations. We create and then we decide, what ethical limitations do we have to apply? And like any tool, if it's in the wrong hands, it's dangerous. If it's in the right hands, it could be incredibly creatively powerful. So,
right. I think it's often the case that practice precedes ethics, and we're not quite there yet with AI. Hopefully, we will be. Collectively, sort of make some just general rules and standards around certain things.
Totally. And I'm not a Luddite. I actually am very bullish about technology just because I see what it can do to help create wonderful things for people, either health solutions, but in my world, from an entertainment perspective, how amazing entertainment experiences can be with that type of technology. So I'm not afraid of it, but again, we always have to be mindful of within whose hands lies the technology and how is it being implemented. I will say the technology in my world right now is so exciting. We are only at the beginning. And recently, I have to give a shout out to the ABBA Voyage show in London. I don't know if you've heard much about it, but I cried when I saw it because it was something that I visualized 20 years ago and never thought I'd live long to see. But it is absolutely remarkable. It is one major optical illusion live, and it is phenomenal. So if anyone's out there in London, you've got to go see it. It's fantastic.
You were recently appointed to the Themed Entertainment Association International Board of Directors. What does that association do?
So we are celebrating the 30th year of the awards. I can't tell you how many years prior to that the organization existed, but it's at least 30 years old, if not a little older. And it really started as a constituency of creatives and technologists and designers and fabricators and everyone involved in the themed entertainment business, primarily at that time, theme parks, water parks, family entertainment centers like Chuck E. Cheese, Dave & Buster's and whatnot, really feeling that, again, they were somewhat outsiders and they needed to form a collective because they had shared business experiences and shared needs and interests. And so actually my friend and a client, Monty Lundy, started it with a gentleman named Peter Chernak, like I said, over 30 years. And it's grown into an international organization. I don't know the number of members, but it's pretty significant. And it really is a collective of individuals to share educational information, business opportunities, help one another just in general, get through the business. Also included, though, unlike the actors, the Screen Actors Guild or other guilds that are typically one constituency against another, the Themed Entertainment Association consists of both owners and operators and buyers of creative services, as well as the providers of those creative services. So included in the organization is not just the artists and the service providers, but also the Disneys of the world, the major theme park developers of the world, and whatnot. So we're celebrating the 30th year of the Theo Awards, which is our award show. And it's going to be at the Dolby Theater this year, which is where the Academy Awards are done. So we're very excited. And we're going to be live streaming it too for the first time. So it's very exciting.
I think that would appeal to a lot of people, actually. And I don't know how much notoriety or, publicity that sort of event gets, but people love theme parks. People love those kinds of experiences. I'm sure, when the log ride at Knott's Berry Farm gets a Lifetime Achievement Award or something like that. I mean, that's pretty beautiful and wrapped up with nostalgia and all that kind of stuff.
Totally. And that's why I think there's a little bit of a legacy still in the industry of feeling like the redheaded stepchild, because we were treated also for so many years by traditional entertainment as the afterthought. And I think that caused us to not be as bold and aggressive in promoting ourselves to the general public. And I think of late, in the last number of years, we've really laid claim to our power and how much consumers love what we do. And we're starting to own it and now pump it out there. So that's why we're live streaming it for the first time this year.
Back in 2019, I had the privilege of seeing a stage production of Klingon Tamburlaine, an adaptation of Christopher Marlowe's medieval epic of will, war, and conquest, reimagined as a Klingon-centric sci-fi spectacle. You were the one-woman pit orchestra, providing minimalist incidental music on percussion instruments. How did you get that gig, and what was it like being a part of perhaps the best theatrical experience I've ever had?
It was actually one of the highlights of my life. So I used to run a theater in Chicago called the Chicago Theater. It's a landmark theater on State Street. And there was a young woman that worked with us who I've been friends with now. Now she's no longer a young woman and I'm an old lady. And she's continued to produce theater. She moved out to LA, and her husband is a really ingenious writer and director. And they are Star Trek fans. And he's also a classical theater fanatic. And he had an idea of mixing the two. And he also is very into various theatrical styles, including kabuki and whatnot. And he very much wanted a percussive underscore to the whole show. And I think it was one of those things of, who do we know? Wendy's a drummer. Let's call Wendy. It was so exciting. The first rehearsal I showed up to was so wacky and so bizarre that I actually thought, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. Watching Chris Johnson, who really is a remarkable director and writer, go from the script to opening night was such a journey. The talent was so incredible. And for me to have the opportunity, first of all, to be in costume, I actually had a line. I can't remember what it was, but it was in Klingon. Kapla! That's the only thing I remember. Kapla! But, for me at that stage of my life as a lawyer, to be able to participate in something so creative with people that were just so talented, and then to provide a percussive spine, which also made me feel good because it was, I think, a critical element. I even got called out in a review. It was a positive review, and it was just such a great experience. And it was also interesting to see it from the actor's side because, as you know, it was definitely experimental theater. It was very violent. It was strange. And so it was really interesting to watch the audience reaction and watching the reviews and just being part of it. It was really awesome.
You're also the drummer for the LA-based rock band Crinoline. I imagine drumming is a great way to release some of the pressures of your demanding job and family life. Do you see drumming and maybe music making in general as a life-affirming or even spiritual practice?
100 and gazillion%. Drumming changed my life, and I feel very fortunate. It was through a sad set of circumstances that I found drumming. I went through a personal tragedy and needed to find joy. As a young Jewish girl growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, I wanted to play drums, but we were only allowed to play klezmer instruments. So I was forced to play clarinet. and piano, and there was no way girls in the 70s were allowed to play drums. So I found myself buying some drum things for my nephews at Guitar Center during this period. And I thought, I always wanted to drum. I need a purpose. I need joy. I need something to put a smile on my face. So I just randomly asked the salesperson if he knew a drum instructor that would tolerate a middle-aged woman. And he referred me to a drum instructor, and I showed up with my little sticks, and I started playing and immediately took to it. And within 6 months, he said, I think you need to play with other musicians. You'd enjoy it, and you're a natural. I thought he was crazy. I put an ad on Craigslist, this is how long ago it is, that said, desperate 40-year-old hack housewife drummer seeking other desperate housewife hack musicians to form a desperate housewife band. This was back when that show was on the air. And I got a call from or an email from the band saying, we think you're hilarious. We're all in our 40s and we want to audition you. You're hilarious. And I wrote back and I said, I think you're mistaking reality for a sense of humor. And so I went to this audition, and it was the first time I'd played with other musicians. I left with bloody palms. I'm not joking. It was like something stigmata-like because I held the stick so tight. I was so nervous. I was glad that I did it. It was glad, been there, done that, got the audition over with, checked the life experience box. And then the next day I got a call from the band that I had the gig. And it's been 15 years of total joy. It has brought me to places I never dreamed of going, performing in ways I never dreamed I'd perform. It's part of my identity. I'm now in another band. And it's just been really one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And actually, Jonathan, if I could give a plug to a new initiative that I'm working with on the law firm side that I think is really important, and it's called Reverberation. And if people want to look it up, it's reverberation.co, and it was co-founded by Peter Gabriel. And it is focusing on using music in a curative way. So it's taking the neuroscience of music and creating products, entertainment products, consumer products, and whatnot, as a way of people feeling better through music. And then they also have an initiative called Sonic Diplomacy, which is building bridges and healing geographical wounds through music. Because studies show that at the end of the day, we're humans, and physiologically we all respond to music the same way. So I think that there is something incredibly spiritual about music, and there has been and always will be. And I've tapped into it for myself personally, and I'd really encourage anyone, no matter what age you are, I don't care how old you are, if you want to beat something, beat it. It feels really good.
I know you're adamant about working on and supporting entertainment ventures that are meaningful and make a difference, not just entertainment for entertainment's sake. What are some of the projects you're most proud of?
I'm actually really proud of all the work that I've been involved in and all the folks that create the products and experiences, because I think even before I was in that class that turned me on to 360-degree storytelling, what really compelled me into this industry was when I would watch television or I would watch a movie, I always felt, I left feeling a little depleted, that it was a fantasy that someone else lived, not me. So it was a princess that got to live the life of a princess. It wasn't me being able to be a princess, or it was a superhero conquering something, but I couldn't conquer that. It was a passive way of engaging in storytelling. And when I started working in themed entertainment and I saw how transformative it was, even in the early days, of allowing people to be immersed in their own story, be part of the story, as opposed to watching someone else be the character, it's really powerful. When I was at Universal, my boss said to me, if you're ever having a bad day at your desk, walk through the park and look at the families, look at the kids, look at the cross-generational experiences that you're providing for the families. And I would do it. And so it's really incredible to know that I've helped create experiences, even if it was just one day or a few hours, for someone to feel special, transformed, to give them access to an experience that they normally wouldn't have, it's an incredible feeling. And I challenge people. I always say, can you remember the first television show you ever saw, that first episode you ever watched? It's hard for them. But then I ask them, can you remember the first time you were ever at a theme park, or the first roller coaster you were ever on, or the first show you ever saw that was, you know, an immersive show? And within a millisecond, they can remember it. And it oftentimes involves a parent or a grandparent or a cousin or a sibling or a friend or a neighbor, something that they really connect with. And I'm really proud of that. And I think it's something that our industry has always not really been sharing about, but it's really powerful. And I think what's really cool is, so I've become friends and colleagues with a gentleman that wrote a book called The Experience Economy. His name is Joe Pine. He coined the phrase back in 1999, and he talks about the utility of experiences. And in that book, he also talked about transformation economy and prophesized that we'd get to a point where experiences alone weren't enough, that we needed to create experiences that were transformational. And I think we're getting to a point now with technology, for example, sound technology or light technology, that we actually can create experiences that actually help people's mental health, that actually change people's brainwaves. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's been studied and shown. And to me, I think in the future, that's what's really exciting for me, is that through entertainment, we can actually help people live better lives. And I'm really proud of the work we do. A lot of people think of entertainment as superficial or folly or a nicety, but I actually think that it's a really important part of our sense of well-being. And my industry in particular, I think, is a huge stakeholder in that initiative. And it makes me really proud.
All right, Wendy. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, honestly, Jonathan, for having me. Tell Joey I said hi. And I missed him, but I really appreciated it. It's really an honor, and I hope that people will continue to engage in experiences and enjoy them. There are more to come, and they're going to get mind-blowing, more and more and more mind-blowing. So thank you for having me.
And to our audience, now back to your regularly scheduled lives. Amusing Jews is here to amuse you. If you like being amused, go ahead and click like and subscribe.